What's good, y'all? Hope everybody's well. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. Was sent this one and was asked by several of my supporters to give some comment to it, and I agreed to do so. So let me go ahead and put this up for your perusal. You can see for yourself what we were dealing with. So some of you have already seen this. This is a short clip filmed in Brooklyn, New York.
They have different looks.
You see.
But I mean, like, usually one looks like a fucking dude. She looked like she did that for someone. You know what I mean? That could just be fucking. Especially if he's involved. Right?
So just an interesting little clip for the moment where listening to what I am told are two police officers who are chiming in on the video that they're watching. And so what you saw is a woman in black with a blonde wig or weave who walked up to this woman, 42-year-old woman, shot her in the head. And it said that they came from a funeral. Somebody sent me
we did it again.
The news report. Sorry about that. I hate when these websites just open up with all kind of video and crap. But anyway, there's an article that's covering this a little bit on abc7ny.com. Article's entitled "Woman Sought in Casual Brazen Murder on Brooklyn Street." Prospect Heights, Brooklyn. Police are searching for a woman who casually walked up behind another woman in Brooklyn and fatally shot her in the head. That's kind of all they seem to know as of this article. Said it happened 9:30 p.m. on Franklin Avenue in Prospect Heights. And the victim was 42-year-old Delia Johnson, who you saw lying unconscious on the ground. She was rushed to Interfaith Hospital, where she was pronounced dead. The video shows the suspect described as being in her mid-20s with a heavy build and long blonde hair, first exiting a white vehicle. Now, a couple reasons that I'm commenting on this. Right? A couple reasons I'm commenting on this video. The main reason is that in the video itself, one of the things I noticed the police officers doing was talking about what man put her up to this. And this is part of the problem of what I've been trying to address in general. I think people receive it as some kind of hatred of women. The issue that I'm getting at in our society is that we infantilize women. We infantilize. I gotta look up which one it is applicable to the moment. But we treat them like infants. They're not human. Their capacity for evil is swept under the rug and discarded. And evil is not necessarily the best word, but it hits the point for the moment. It really does. So immediately upon watching a video of a woman shooting another woman in the head, question immediately popped up: who made her do it? As the guy said, especially if he's involved, right? It's an interesting kind of dynamic, the degree to which women are not really considered human. Right? That's part of the problem. And I think it wholly, makes us unprepared for when women do act out in ways that go against convention. And I think many feminists enjoy this gap in humanity because it excuses women from accountability, but they double down on that same gap in a critical fashion when it, of course, obscures their access to opportunity. So what am I saying? Basically, it's useful when it's useful, and when it's not useful, it's inhumane. But at the end of the day, when women are not held accountable, and we already know from the data, right, that apparently women are sentenced less. I think it's between 67 to 69% less in terms of criminal charges for committing the same crimes as men. A lot of that has to do with our perception of women as non-human. Right? That's part of the problem. But overall, there's two things really that we are really not prepared for when it comes to how we assess gender and even and particularly in the Black community. There's two things. First one is women's capacity for evil, as we just saw. Right? If you watched that video and immediately started to think about excuses or things that could have happened to excuse her behavior, you're part of the problem. Right? Now, I've heard rumors. I don't know what's true, what isn't. I heard they both came from a funeral prior to that. Some people are speculating it has to do with a man. Others are speculating that it has to do with money. I can't really say. I haven't seen anything that verified the cause yet. I haven't even seen anything that verified who the person, the assassin was necessarily. But what I can say is just looking at the video itself, I'm more so observing how people respond to it and the lengths that we go to excuse women, right? And so it's so much so that when you actually point that out, as one cat came on my Facebook page a few days ago, he said, just pointing out our difference in how we regard men and women, he immediately suggested that I had to hate women because I'm going after them with such passion. It's not about going after them. It's about observing how we as a society can look at a situation and completely interpret it in a different way. Simply put, if this was a drive-by where one male kills another, how much time do people spend trying to explain it away? Trying to suggest that, oh, well, he was probably upset. Or how many times do you hear the cops say, well, it's probably a woman that made him do it. But the reality is we do have such a thing as proxy violence. There are situations where women will instigate murder. I've covered that on my show. I've even had women talking about that on my show. And yet that's not really a serious factor when we talk about the rates of men killing men. We don't calculate or even raise the question about how many of these murders may have been instigated by women. Because at the end of the day, you have one man killing another. So whether somebody goes to jail, somebody dies, that's how we calculate it. We don't think about anything else. So even though you're going to be castigated for asking the question why we can't evaluate women based on their actions without having to make it a man's responsibility, you're still going to be labeled as someone that hates women because we are so uncomfortable and unfamiliar with holding women accountable the way we do men. Here's the other side to it. Here's the other thing that we're not prepared to look at. We're not prepared to look at men's vulnerability. And I make men routinely uncomfortable when I talk about, or some men, when I talk about male vulnerability. This is a picture of DJ Yella from NWA. And recently on an interview with DJ Vlad, he talked about his upcoming book, but he mentioned something that he said he didn't go into in the book, but it played a role in his life. Maybe he did and I misunderstood that, but I don't think he talks about it in his book. And he talked about going to, I think, a public pool as a child and being molested in the pool. He didn't go into any detail. He didn't tell any story. The only thing he said, he implied that it may have had something to do with his hypersexuality, later in life. Because he said he was pretty young when it happened, but it immediately sexualized him and he became somewhat hypersexual. He kind of talked about that. And last I heard, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he had delved into the porn industry. I don't think he was one of the actors, but I think he got into producing porn. But y'all correct me if I'm wrong. This is from some years ago, so I haven't really followed DJ Yella's career. But I'm simply saying, if that's true, going from child who's molested to hypersexual rap artist or musician to porn industry producer, those are the kind of tracks that most of us don't have conversations about when it comes to men who've been violated at a young age. And there are a lot of men who've had these experiences. And, we can actually look at in a kind of backward, what do they call that? When you have to reverse engineer, we can kind of almost reverse engineer men's experiences. And we can actually see how those experiences may have played out and how these men live their lives, what they've gone through, right? There's let me see, trying to find, bear with me for a moment. I did write an article a while back where I was talking about R. Kelly. Along these very lines, I was talking about R. Kelly because R. Kelly has clearly been sexualized, especially from early experiences, early violations, early molestations, and it's definitely sexualized him. He was allegedly molested by his sister, he and his brother, and then molested by a man in the neighborhood. And yet there's no conversation on how those experiences impacted him and shaped his behavior. And here's the thing, I always say this about when it comes to molestation, also shape how men even process pleasure. When you've been violated or molested at a young age, the very way your body processes, really your mind, processes pleasure is often tied to those early experiences. So whatever happened with her or with him or whatever that situation was at a young age often serves as a somewhat imprint on the very idea of what you're attracted to and how you negotiate pleasure and what you go look, to replicate in your adult life based on those experiences, especially if you've never had any counseling to bring those experiences to bear and really work out what it is you experienced and how it impacted you. But this is not limited to one person. Again, I'm just sticking with celebrities because we know who they are. I suspect the numbers are quite extreme in the Black community in particular. When you deal with young boys, we're already hypersexualized in the eyes of society. We are also hypersexualized within our own community, not only by each other as males, but also in regard to our women. We are literally seen as walking phalluses to the world. Black men, most particularly in North America, and I would argue in the Caribbean that have come out of slavery, this is how we're viewed, as walking phalluses to be used as pleasure or sperm for whomever is interested in that. It's part of how we're seen, and we're taught that from a very young age. So a girl's violation is considered an extreme injustice. A boy's violation is considered a Wednesday. It's not really reflected on to any great extent. There aren't even any facilities for it. Closest thing you got to a facility for boys' violation is a juvenile detention center or a prison if he's over 18. Meaning if he acts up in response to that trauma, there is no place for him to go. Because we don't, as a society, regard that as a trauma. Most of us say it's a rite of passage. It's part of who we. No, it's actually documented. You look at, Curry and Utley's work in the paper She Touched Me. It's documented. Boys actually have the same responses psychologically to being traumatized in regard to rape or sexual violation or molestation as girls. We just don't regard it as a society. The same way we can watch a woman kill somebody on video and dismiss it and look for excuses for it. But yet if we see a man, we can hold him accountable and suggest how evil he is. We do the same kind of thing when it comes to rape, but it's reversed. Girls have been severely mistreated and it's unjust. For boys, it's a Wednesday. So when you look at people like Ike Turner, Richard Pryor, Sugar Ray Leonard, Iceberg Slim, R. Kelly, MC Shan, Chris Brown, Bow Wow, D. Ray Davis, Lil Wayne, Tyler Perry, Columbus Short, Charlemagne the God, Mike Tyson, Antoine Fisher, Kashif, DMX, Lecrae, Denzel Curry, Chris Gardner, Don Lemon, Rashawn Patterson, Terry Crews, when you look at all of these brothers that have experienced, and of course R. Kelly, these kind of traumatic childhood experiences, do you consider any of their past to play into who they became? Do you consider that if you can name off this many Black male celebrities that have experienced this, that it's most likely that everyday men, and again, DJ Yella, right, as the latest to the list, do any of those become factors that we take into account? Most of us don't know how to, including Black men themselves. So again, the two things we don't know how to do, we don't know how to hold women accountable for their actions, and we don't know how to address male, particularly Black male, vulnerability. Those are two things we're going to have to learn how to reassess. It's past due. All right? So I hope you guys are well. Enjoy yourselves. Y'all take it easy. Peace.